Welcome. Welcome to everybody for the next session. We think it's going to be, do I dare say the most interesting one? Do I dare? This is going to be the most interesting session that you guys have seen. Not just today, but all week. Yeah. Yeah, why not? Come on, give us a round of applause. Come on. Look, all week we're talking about how we want to get things done together and how we're going to address these big audacious goals of, access to water and eliminating hunger and eliminating poverty. And, the UN doesn't set things in small scale, right? The goals, the objectives, they're big, big goals. And I love the theme that we've set here, which is digital transformation together. I think it sort of sets that objective or that notion that no matter what we're going to do, if we're going to address these audacious goals, we're going to have to do them together, right? And digital, one of the key things, I think that maybe a lot of people don't realize when they think about digital, they pull out their iPhone and they think a little app, a fancy little digital app is going to solve everything and produce the panacea, the solution to everything that was ailing the developing world. And we know in digital that that's not true. It takes digital transformation together, right? It takes an ecosystem of actors, that ecosystem word that you keep hearing popping up around town. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, which is essentially how the digital transformation in bringing together an ecosystem of actors is really trying to address those most marginalized, those in developing economies, those working as smallholder farmers. You may or may not know them. Some of you are very intimately aware of who a smallholder farmer is. I'm always surprised when I travel across Africa and India that I meet group chairmen, I meet group CEOs, I meet presidents, I meet who say, I am a farmer. And they say it proudly, right? Because these are communities and countries that are built on farming. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what Mastercard is doing in this space, maybe something that some of you don't know. I'm the head and the founder of a business called Community Pass at Mastercard. And in short, what Community Pass is trying to do is bring together that ecosystem of actors onto a digital platform that enables them to be enables a farmer to be more efficient, to gain access, to be more efficient, and to have transactions happen safely and securely. So that's what Community Pass is doing. And it's complicated. And it's not complicated only because the technology needs to work. It's not complicated only because sometimes we're operating often in disconnected environments with no connectivity. It's not only complicated because often you're dealing in situations where banks or entities have never lent to these communities before, right? It's also not only complicated because sometimes the last mile actors who reach the farm gates don't exist. So what we're trying to do here in Community Pass is bring all these actors together to make customers and partners and the people who provide services to these smallholder farmers commercially viable, to make them be able to provide services at the last mile. And you're going to hear more from my esteemed panelists here. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to solve for the challenges of that smallholder farmer. And what is that smallholder farmer's challenge? That farmer is sitting miles, hours often, from an urban center. Like I said, doesn't have connectivity, is making somewhere between $2 and $5 a day. A farmer needs to plant things, right, to make money. Often that farmer doesn't have access to authentic seeds. Is that crazy? Imagine being a small business owner and saying, you can't access the input that you need to put in the ground to reap, right, the crop that is actually going to feed your family. Often that the inputs that they get, they don't know if they're real or fake. Community Pass tries to build trust in that ecosystem to make sure that the farmer at the end gets a real input. Often that farmer needs $10 of credit, $50 of credit to buy that seed. Community Pass tries to make that happen and connect in the bankers to do that. So enough about Community Pass. Why are we focused on ag? Well, it's not just important for the individual, for that farmer, right? At the global level, in many markets, it represents such a significant portion of GDP. It represents north of 50, 60% of the workforce, so it's an important issue. With that, I want to introduce my panelists, who are the real heroes behind, because they're entities and they're commercial businesses, and as much as we like to talk about SDGs and poverty alleviation and all these types of things, these are the CEOs of companies on the ground that are trying to make businesses work so that service provision at scale in a sustainable manner can happen. So with that, I know you're going to be super excited. This is the best part of the panel, not the part that just happened. To my left is Group CEO of CRDB, Mr. Nsekela. This is a Pan-African bank, a financial service provider, but working primarily in Tanzania and Burundi and the DRC. We're going to hear from Aniket Doegar as well, who's the founder and CEO of Haqdarshak, which is a social enterprise. I'm not going to talk too much because they're going to tell us about their businesses. A social enterprise that makes sure that those people living in those poor rural environments are getting subsidies from the government. Super cool innovation from a business perspective. So with that, I'm going to turn to each of you and maybe ask you a few questions. Mr. Nsekela, please tell me, it would be interesting just to hear about your business. Talk to us about your business, who you're serving, and how is that helping these smallholder farmers and these rural individuals that we've been talking about.
Thank you very much, Tara, and great introductions. And I think still good morning or good afternoon, good morning again for the group. Basically, I'm Abdulmajid Nsekela, the group CEO for CRDB, the largest bank in Tanzania. We're currently in Burundi and DRC. We serve all the communities. We serve smallholder, medium size, bigger, you name it. I think the intro you have just shared resonates well with what we are doing in Tanzania. Tanzania, being in Africa, like many other countries in Africa, is a country with about 61, 62 million people. And the majority are the farmer. And you spoke about what Mastercard is doing. Basically, CRDB has been providing financial services on individual level, on the group level, but also to the unprivileged level. Not only financial services, but also providing the enabling environment to let them understand what does it mean to be included. And we believe in inclusive. I think the biggest challenge we see being a bank, there is a bigger trust, and the majority of the population is unbanked. The current data which has been issued is about 22% is the banked populations. That means almost 78% unbanked in the rural, and there is a need to be there. But we have been able to provide solutions on alternative way of doing things, digitizing our infrastructure, creating solutions that reach them, and equally serving the underserved in the country. That's what maybe, just for beginning of intro, I can just end there.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Aniket, tell us a little bit about Haqdarshak.
So Haqdarshak is a social enterprise based out of India. We are solving the problem of access to information and last mile service delivery for government benefits being delivered to low-income families, farmers, and small businesses. And to put this in context, India spends about 10% of its GDP on social benefits, which are government subsidies. So as the economy has gone from $1 trillion to $4 trillion, that money has become $400 billion. It's still very low per capita, but it's a huge amount. And this is for the 800 million people who do not have access to information. Firstly, because they do not know what the government program is, and then there is huge challenges in accessing those benefits, and a lot of that amounts are coming in cash transfers. And then social security benefits like insurance, pensions, savings, subsidized credit. So we have built the technology platform which enables the information, right information basis their profile, matching of that. Second, we have a network of 40,000 women agents who are in these rural communities at the last mile, who are then helping with the application process and following up and ensuring that these low-income families are getting these benefits delivered.
So tell me a little bit, I'm interested, right? Because both of you have talked about that opportunity. We all talked about the opportunity to serve these, whether it's rural farmers or the women, the women organizers, et cetera. Tell me a little bit about your pain points. What are the difficulties that you're facing in reaching the segments you're trying to serve? And how do you see this theme of digital providing a potential solution? So what are your pain points, and how does digital start to address those pain points and help you be a better business in serving them?
Yeah, I think I just want to share the case of Tanzania. It just in a nutshell in terms of the statistics, and then narrate about what does this mean by virtue of the topic you have highlighted. Currently, for example, agriculture in Tanzania, it contributes about 26.2% of GDP. It employs almost 62% of the populations. And when you see Tanzania is more of a young age populated country, about 7.5 million young, they are very active in agriculture. However, CRDB has been instrumental of providing banking services, bricks and mortar, alternative channel, having agents banking all over the country, more than 30,000. Still, it does not address the challenge we see in terms of financial inclusions. When you speak about digital transformations, and I like the title, basically, you say marginalized countries. That itself, it addresses the challenge we see now. And that's the biggest pain point. Accessing those populations is a challenge. Infrastructures may not be there. And also financial readiness becomes a challenge. Cost of running services becomes a challenge. By virtue of transforming the economy to digital era, that means you are addressing the biggest gap where you'll be able to provide access more affordable to their community, embody more customers, like what we're doing at CRDB, for example. We are moved to where customer can be able to onboard themselves to the bank. And we have seen the value. What is missing now? How do we embed additional services, which are either payments, ecosystems, connecting other stakeholders in the chain, so that it make a value to those customers. And if we're to grow from 22% to 30%, 5%, it's possible as long as we are moving to digital era. And I like the comment you highlighted when you narrated on your first interest about community digital pass, which is Mastercard community pass. This is the solution to me. It will unlock the challenge facing most of the payment system and the ecosystem in the chain. However, it requires a kind of understanding what to digitize and who should be in the board of digitizations. How do we create governance in the framework? How do we train the end beneficiaries of these solutions? And how do we address their challenges? Because you need to discuss about their challenges. A good example is the farmer in the rural, where you require about 100 miles to reach the payment center. And we have seen farmers losing money because there is a lot of middlemen in the process. With the digitizations, you are killing away the middleman. You are linking direct the farmer to the supplier of subsidy, to the market space, and the information is powerful. That means if you're tracking the productions digitally, your payment digitally, it gives you data rich. And that means you're able now to come up with the solutions of digitizing even credit. And that means you're able to address the challenge of access to credit. It will be addressed because you'll be able to digitize even solutions. But the farmers themselves, they should be able to assess their performance annually so that they can be able to graduate from one step to another. And that by virtue of doing so, obviously, it will transform the economy at large. And this is what we need to be doing as we speak about digital transformations. I think one more thing. I think there is always a good buzz about digitalizations and transformations. But I think the most important for this kind of countries where you want to digitalize is first to understand the dynamics in terms of infrastructure. Because we need also to create infrastructure digitally, internet services, connectivity. So how do you collaborate with other stakeholders to do that? And I believe the solution you just mentioned, it comes with to the right time, especially CRDB and the rest. So we are looking forward for that. And that's what I think is critical.
Super. So access, efficiency, lowering the cost to serve. These are some of the pain points that you see as digital potentially solving. Aniket, tell me about sort of the India context and sort of where you see the digital transformation and solving pain points.
I think very similar. So building on that, I think one of the challenges that we see is a huge, in these communities, trust deficit. I think there are solutions. But what is important is for them to have, through this digital transformation in products that we are building and trying to build, is that once the trust in a payment solution or a network solution is broken for these communities, they don't want to go there. And this has happened in the past. So I think we see building that through product innovation as a very key aspect. The second that we see is that last mile access that we already talked about. That how do we reach communities which are far away from banking networks, from touch points, and how do you train the last mile networks very efficiently and improve their productivity so that a lot of these services are given to farmers at their doorstep. I mean, to give you an example of a government benefit program in India, which is called the Prime Minister's Kisan program, we have 150 million registered farmers on it. About 100 million farmers receive $100 as cash transfer. Due to the lack of usage of digital ways of how they can connect to the market, a majority of that income is immediately taken out, withdrawn as cash. If we can have at the right time the digital interventions of savings, insurance, credit access, farmers can use this as a starting point of subsidy to get better financial inclusion. But that today remains a big challenge. And like already mentioned, I think we think there is a lot of digital transformation which happens and we hear about it, we read about it, but the reality is you go 100 kilometers away from Mumbai and internet doesn't work. Yeah. That's the ground reality. What you see online, what you see on paper is for 30% of the country in India. But when you go to the 70%, which seems like very close to that metro city, internet breaks down. You know, the right time OTP doesn't come. How do you solve for these offline important challenges for the merchants, for the farmers, for these low-income families?
I think that's so important, right? We have a tendency, like, especially when we talk at the policymaker level and the government stakeholder level, everyone wants to tout the successes. But on the ground, what's the reality is what you're speaking to. And you're saying, right, 30 miles from the city center, there's zero connectivity. Even in a market like India that is so advanced. You know, you mentioned, both of you, about sort of this notion of an ecosystem of actors. So I'm interested in 2 points, and maybe either of you can take whichever one you want. I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about what is the ecosystem, what is needed. You both mentioned trust, about a trust deficit at the last mile, at the beneficiary level, at the farmer level, at the rural inhabitant level. Maybe talk a little bit more about that and where you see a digital solving that trust deficit and where you see specifically Community Pass, Mastercard, and or the work we're doing together via the MAID Alliance, which we haven't yet chatted about, sort of addressing some of those trust deficits.
Yeah, I think when you speak about the value chain of the farmer, there is a need to understand the stakeholder in the value chain. And next step is how do you connect and what role do they play in the process? I'll give you an example in Tanzania. The government initiated a program about subsidy supply to all farmers. But the first step was how do you register farmers? How do you understand their needs in terms of self-farming, seasonalities, and their readiness? basically, it became as a challenge. And what we did as CRDB was say, the first thing is to register farmers in a basic level, because that is one solution of subsidy. And that means you have to register farmer to understand their geographical locations, their farm size, soil type, and also the size of the crop to be harvested. But there is a question to understand in terms of when you're doing farming, there is a step in the farming. One is the preparation of the farm. And the majority of these farmers, they don't have enough cash to start preparations. They need to be supported, but you can't support them because the data is not available. So the step we took with the government is to work together. That's stakeholder number one. Number two, subsidies are supplied by those distributors, and most of them are private entities. Next step was, how do you now link them to finance them to supply subsidy, where they should not charge farmers at the time of, in terms of plantations, preparations, and step, because it becomes costly. The next step was, we'll obviously create a solutions where those supply of subsidy will be financed in more of a guarantee framework, where we're granting the supplier of the subsidy because they're imported. You give them LC. That's another solutions within the chain. But that's not step of these decisions. And then the question will be, how will you identify the subsidy goes to the right farmer? And there is a lot of
So it's
associations.
trust on both sides.
Exactly. But there is, within the chain, you have to remove interventions, and it goes to the director. So when we are talking about digitizing, and that's what I spoke about, is a process where the government will be important because they play a bigger role. They have to undertake that. The farmer themselves, they have to understand their role, and you need to support them. The case what we did, for example, CRDB, you know, most of the farmers in the village, they don't have insurance in terms of health insurance. So we brought insurance on board. But they cannot be paid. But we guarantee the payment at the time of harvest. That is part of the digitalizations in terms of information of the farmer and their family. And they have been providing that solutions. But solution is more still on one way. We have not linked them with the market. And that way we need to bring them on board together to do so. So that's kind of a transformation for me I would like to see moving forward. What does the Mastercard community pass will bring? It comes as advanced technology with rich in terms of value additions within the platforms. The platform bring the farmers, bring the payment system, bring the supplier on board. And that means you have linked the entire chain of the process, and it makes a lot of value for that kind of integrations. Thank you.
Aniket, talk to me about trust and ecosystem partners. Mr. Nsekela talked about trust from the perspective of the disperser, right? I think you were sort of alluding to trust from the perspective of the village inhabitant. Maybe talk a little bit about that and where you see digital adding value there.
No, I think trust for a citizen and or a farmer at the last mile sometimes breaks because the payments fall through. Like I said, the OTPs don't come in. And I think at that time to have a solution where they know that they are not going to lose money. Because, for example, when we lose out on a...
What gives trust? Maybe you can help us understand. So trust doesn't exist today. Yeah. What do we need to do from today moving forward to build that trust, at that?
I mean, I think one is at the product innovation level. And we've been working on our Yojana card for the last 1 year, which we've now ready. Finally to kind of...
Are you going to show it to us?
Yes. This is the card. This is going to be... This is on a community pass. This is a prepaid debit version of the card. So think of a farmer or a low-income family being able to access this card, get their cash transfer from the government, social benefits on this card. Then we are creating a universe of savings, pension, insurance in the card ecosystem, in the platform ecosystem through a women agent from the community. That is the most important because it's her peer in the community. I, as an outsider, am not going in the community and telling them, take this card. Because the confidence comes from someone who's not going to run away, who's not going to go away from the community, who's going to be part of the system, is using the system and can solve for it. like I was saying, if a payment breaks through, if we get our refund, let's say after 48 hours, that 48 hours for us now in an urban setting is we know the money is going to come back. When you put a hold on a bank, right, you know the money is going to come back. For a farmer, 48 hours is a huge time. They get anxious, they panic. When is my money going to come back? I made a transfer. There, having an environment of trained local community agents is a massive plus. And I think what this will also enable us to do, how we have designed it, and I talked to Tara last year of this idea, and it was completely, I think, insane to think in India to bring this, and we've been kind of working together to build the blocks, but finally we are excited that this is getting launched because we can also do a lot of innovation on it. We are already talking to partners where we could do health screenings, we could create health design, social insurance programs on this for citizens, because we are talking about communities where government subsidies and programs are not enough. We need to now also start thinking of behavior change. How do you get them the confidence, the trust comes from the citizens in saying today that do I want to invest in an insurance and pension program like $1 per month? It's not like these families can't contribute $1. The problem is, do I trust the platform to contribute the $1? And I think that is extremely, extremely important. And it has huge market value. So this is not just for businesses, and the point on what we need from the ecosystem is that this is not, as you typically say, a social good alone or CSR. This is important for businesses to adopt for their supply chains. For companies to look at their workers, companies to look at from a farmer lens who they are buying from. If they have social benefits, if they have access to such financial inclusion, this is actually better for their own business.
Yep. Thank you so much. I mean, I think we've learned so much, right? Where does digital play a key role in not just doing a lot of the things we've been talking about all day, like transit and some of the higher level developed economy types of applications, but in actually giving access, giving efficiency, making things profitable for businesses who want to serve the last mile and serve these marginalized populations, and showing us how digital is going to be critical to making it commercially sustainable and scalable. And I love the whole last conversation about trust. And trust is not just about, it's about service providers gaining trust, it's about farmers gaining trust, and what I loved is your angle of physical and digital working together to build that trust. So with that, I ask you that, let's thank our panelists here for joining us. And hopefully we lived up to being the best panel of the day.